The lecture hall buzzed with the usual pre-class chatter as Commander Vexthor, a towering Krelnian with obsidian scales and 4 calculating eyes, prepared his holographic display. Around the amphitheater-style seats, cadets from a dozen different species settled into their positions, their varied forms creating a tapestry of galactic diversity. In the back row, Rebecca Hayes sat alone, her small human frame dwarfed by the muscular bulk of her classmates. Her fingers moved steadily across her datapad, stylus dancing in precise movements as she filled page after page with calculations. The soft, scratching sound drew occasional glances from nearby cadets. "Look at the human," chittered Zixanel, a mantis-like clicking whose species prided themselves on their tactical superiority. His mandibles clicked in amusement as he nudged his companion. "Still taking notes like some primitive scribe. Does her species not have neural interfaces?" A ripple of laughter spread through the surrounding seats. The Torvasians, massive bear-like creatures bred for warfare, huffed their agreement. Even the normally reserved Selenites, with their crystalline bodies that refracted light in beautiful patterns, allowed themselves knowing glances. Rebecca didn't look up. Her stylus continued its steady work, numbers and diagrams flowing onto her screen in neat columns. She'd grown accustomed to the mockery over the past 3 months at the Galactic Naval Academy. Humans were the newest species to join the Confederation, and their lack of natural armor, limited sensory capabilities, and seemingly primitive technology made them easy targets for ridicule. "Attention!" Commander Vexthor's voice cut through the noise like a plasma blade. The room fell silent instantly. "Today we analyze the Battle of Kepler's Belt. A Confederate fleet of 47 vessels encountered a Ravager warpack of 83 ships. Fleet Admiral Corvesh commanded our forces." The holographic display erupted to life, showing the 3-dimensional battlefield in stunning detail. Blue icons represented Confederate ships, cruisers, destroyers, and frigates arranged in the traditional hammer formation. Red icons swarmed in the characteristic chaos pattern of the Ravagers, those nightmare creatures from the void who'd terrorized the galaxy for centuries. "The battle lasted 17 hours, Vexthor continued, his tail swishing as he manipulated the controls. "We lost 31 vessels. The Ravagers lost all 83. The Confederation called it a great victory." Rebecca's stylus paused for the briefest moment before resuming its work. "Now," the commander's 4 eyes swept the room. "I want tactical analysis. What did Admiral Corvesh do right? What could have been improved? Cadet Zixanal, you first." The clicking straightened proudly. "The Admiral executed the hammer formation perfectly, Commander. He used our superior firepower to—" "Wrong." Vexthor's tail cracked against the podium. "Next." One by one, cadets offered their analyses. The Torvasians praised the aggressive tactics. The Selenites complimented the shield harmonization. The aquatic deep folk spoke of perfect timing. Each answer was met with the same response. Wrong. Finally, Vexthor's gaze settled on the back row. "Cadet Hayes, you've been writing extensively. Perhaps you have insights to share?" Every head in the amphitheater turned. Rebecca looked up from her datapad, her brown eyes meeting the commander's 4 without flinching. She stood slowly, her movements precise and economical. "Permission to approach the display, Commander?" Vexthor's scales rippled with curiosity. "Granted." Rebecca descended the steps, her datapad clutched against her chest. When she reached the holographic battlefield, she set the pad down and began manipulating the controls with practiced efficiency. "Admiral Corvesh's fleet should have suffered minimal casualties," she began, her voice steady. "Perhaps 3 to 5 ships at most." Gasps and derisive clicks echoed through the hall. The clicking's mandibles chattered in disbelief. "Impossible! The Ravagers outnumbered us nearly 2 to 1. Rebecca ignored him. She rewound the battle simulation to the opening positions. "Here, At timestamp 00.4722, the Ravager left flank executes a feint toward Quadrant 7. Admiral Corvesh commits 12 destroyers to intercept. She fast-forwarded. At 01:15:09, the Ravager command ship, here, fires its primary weapon at our flagship. The Admiral orders evasive maneuvers, pulling the center of our formation away. Yes, growled a Torvasian. Standard tactical response. No. Rebecca's fingers flew across the controls, overlaying trajectory lines and probability cones onto the display. The Ravager command ship's weapon has a charging time of 97 seconds. Its targeting system requires 89 seconds to achieve lock. The firing arc is limited to 43 degrees vertical, 61 degrees horizontal. She pulled up her datapad, showing dense columns of calculations. If Admiral Corvesh had rotated the flagship 7 degrees on the Z-axis and maintained position, the shot would have missed by 340 meters. Meanwhile, our 12 destroyers were out of position for the actual attack that came from Quadrant 3, resulting in the loss of 6 ships. The room had gone completely silent. Rebecca continued, her voice gaining strength. At 03:22:44, our cruiser line fires full broadsides at the Ravager cluster in Sector 9, standard suppression fire. But the Ravagers were already moving. If the cruisers had delayed firing by 11 seconds and adjusted aim by 14 degrees, they would have caught the Ravagers mid-maneuver. Instead, we wasted 47% of our ammunition capacity. She walked around the display, pointing to different moments in the battle. Here, and here. 3 separate instances where our ships fired at Ravager vessels that were already tactically destroyed by overlapping fields of fire, redundant kills. Wasted ordnance that was desperately needed later when ammunition ran low. Commander Vexthor's scales had shifted to a deep purple, the Krelnian expression of intense focus. Continue. For the next 20 minutes, Rebecca dissected the battle with surgical precision. She identified 47 distinct tactical errors, each one calculated and documented in her notes. She showed how the Ravagers' seemingly chaotic attack pattern was actually predictable based on their fuel consumption rates and engine heat signatures. She demonstrated how Confederate ships repeatedly fired at targets that were already mission-killed while allowing damaged Ravagers to escape and regroup. The Admiral treated this like a traditional engagement, Rebecca concluded, pulling up a final holographic overlay that showed her calculated optimal timeline. He relied on superior firepower and accepted losses as inevitable. But every ship has limitations. Every weapon has a pattern. The Ravagers aren't unpredictable, they're just faster than most species can track. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of cadets who had mocked her just an hour before. Humans don't have neural interfaces. We don't have crystalline battle computers in our minds. We don't have 4 eyes or echolocation or quantum-entangled communication nodules. What we have is pattern recognition. We see the numbers, we see the angles, and we calculate. Rebecca picked up her datapad, showing page after page of calculations. While you all were watching the battle like a sports match, I was counting. Every shot fired, every maneuver executed, every second of delay. I wasn't taking notes, Cadet Zixanal. I was calculating kills. Real kills versus optimal kills. Ammunition spent versus ammunition required. Lives lost versus lives that could have been saved. Commander Vexthor's tail had gone completely still, a sign of profound respect among Krelnians. Your analysis? Following my tactical model, Confederate losses, 4 ships. Ravager losses, 83 ships. Battle duration, 9 hours instead of 17. Ammunition expenditure, 42% of actual usage. Personnel casualties, 94% reduction. The silence in the lecture hall was absolute. Even the normally boisterous Torvasians sat motionless, their combat-oriented minds processing the implications. The clicking's mandibles had frozen mid-gesture. Finally, Commander Vexthor spoke, his voice carrying a weight it hadn't before. Cadet Hayes has just demonstrated why the Confederation invited humanity to join our ranks. We invited them not for their technology, not for their physical capabilities, but for this. He gestured to Rebecca's datapad. The ability to see patterns where others see chaos, to calculate victory where others accept loss, to turn warfare from an art into a science. He turned his 4 eyes back to Rebecca. Your analysis will be forwarded to Fleet Command. I suspect Admiral Corvesh will be very interested in your calculations. Rebecca nodded and returned to her seat, her expression unchanged. But as she passed Cadet Zixnal, she paused for just a moment. Every battle is just math, she said quietly. Numbers don't lie. They don't make excuses, and they don't accept unnecessary casualties. The clicking's antennae drooped in a gesture of respect his species rarely showed to other races. As the lecture resumed, no one snickered at the human in the back row anymore. They watched with a new understanding, with a touch of fear, perhaps, as her stylus continued its precise work across the datapad. Because now they understood. While they had been watching a battle, Rebecca Hayes had been counting the dead and calculating how to save them. In the cold mathematics of war, humanity had found its place among the stars, not as the strongest, not as the fastest, but as the species that refused to accept that casualties were inevitable, the species that turned every battle into an equation and then solved for survival. The galaxy's warriors had laughed at the quiet human taking notes. Now they wondered what other human traits they had underestimated. And in the darkness between the stars, where the Ravagers still lurked and new threats emerged, the Confederation had found its new weapon, not plasma cannons or quantum torpedoes, but cold, precise, human calculation, the kind that counted every life lost and refused to accept it. The kind that turned warfare into mathematics and solved for zero casualties.